Hello, and welcome to the Four Horsemen's custom build team. My name is Paul. Today's challenge, or this month's challenge, is to take this Chevy or this GMC van and turn it into four-wheel drive. It's a pretty daunting task, but we're up to the challenge for sure. It's a nice custom. The paint job, well, I think we can improve on that. But this one is going to be a lot of fun. Now, the other members of the team, Keith from Outlaw Speed Shop, Javier from Diecast Show Customs, and Jeff from 164 Revival, the four of us together make the Four Horsemen. Let's go ahead and get started on this build. Here we've got the van. I've drilled out the post. All these windows are in place. They're secured with little pinned over little posts. So we're going to have to drill those out to get those windows out. They really put these cars together well. Now your bumpers and all that stuff, those are all melted in place, and we'll just get a razor blade and we'll take them apart. The interior, that doesn't look too bad, but I think we might be able to improve on the interior. In the base, well, we definitely got to get rid of those wheels, and I'll tell you what, right now, as far as what I'm going to do for wheels and stuff, I've got an idea, but we'll have to see how that comes to fruition. But we'll definitely take these things apart and get it going. Well, the first thing we need to do is get this paint off with some citrus strip, and we'll get the inside and the outside on this car. I use this stiff bristle brush and throw the citrus strip on there. That ought to cover up everything pretty good. Just make sure you get the inside and the outside. Even if you're not going to change the color too much, it just makes it that much more cleaner, you know? That's looking good. Now we're going to have to let that set for a bit, probably a few hours at the most, but sometimes I just let it sit overnight just because. All right. Here I started mocking up a suspension. I got this suspension off a Chevy pickup truck from Greenlight, and it looks pretty good, but the suspension on this doesn't work. I mean, it just sits there. It looks really cool, but I don't know, man. If we're going to go with the four-wheel drive and like that, I really think we need a working suspension. Let me see what I got in the boxes I have and see if we can come up with something else. Like I said, I got the suspension off of a Chevy truck. That Chevy truck. But I think we're going to do a little bit more crazy on this. Here I found this Dodge pickup that had working suspension. So I'm thinking I'm going to mate those wheels and adjust the chassis to fit underneath the base of the van. So it's going to take some cutting and snipping and gluing and mocking it up, and hopefully we can get this right. Well, I went through and I snipped it all down to get it to fit on top of the van. Did some gluing, did some painting. The suspension works. There we go. That looks pretty good. Yeah, I'm liking where this is going for sure. I got the car all sprayed down with a white primer. I used the Auto Air primer. And the very first color we're going to use here is a fluorescent yellow. And I'm kind of hoping this turns out, because what's in my mind is pretty crazy. I mean, probably you folks already know that though. So I'm painting approximately 2/3 of the vehicle with this fluorescent yellow. Make sure you give it light coats, because this paint comes out very, very wet. It's Createx paint, and it is water-based. Now, in between time, once you spray some coats down, you can use your airbrush to dry it. Just squeeze it down if you have a double action brush and use the air in there to dry it. So then I put a little bit more light coats of paint on there, and then I dry it with the air. And I just keep repeating the process until I get the color that I want. I got a bunch more crazy Createx colors that I want to use in the future, and I'm hoping it works out. Man, that color's bright. Looking good. Spray a little paint, dry it with your airbrush. Spray a little paint, dry it with your airbrush. Or let it set. That's up to you. I was kind of wanting to see where this was going, so I sprayed it, and then I dried it, and then once I get all the yellow on there that I want, I'm going to move on to the next color. We've just about got enough on there, so we're going to dry it. That's looking really good. Well, the next color we're going to put down here is a fluorescent orange. And we're going to start at the front, and we're going to fade our way back. I want to try and keep the yellow to the back of the car, and then spray the orange, and then fade it into the yellow. Again, with the Createx paints, you want to make sure that you spray lightly, and then dry in between coats, or let it dry in between coats as you wish. That's already starting to look pretty wild. Man, it's going to be bright though, I'll tell you. I'm spraying at approximately 25 pounds of pressure. Now with the Createx paints, you can turn it up a little bit, maybe go to 30. I use the high performance reducer when I'm reducing down the paint. I believe it's 4012. And then you can thin it down enough to where you can get it through your airbrush. If you try to spray just the paint through there, it's probably not going to work because the paint is thick. So you're going to have to reduce it down. I'll be coming up with a video here in the near future on how to mix all of the paints that I use. Everything from Createx paints to the Spectre Flame paints to the Nitro Flame paints from the Bright Vision wheels, folks. They're all really good paints, and as long as you know how to mix them properly, you'll be good to go. We've got the orange on there faded into the yellow. Now I think we're going to go with a third color. Here we go. I think we're going to fade the front end in with a fluorescent pink. There we go. Now it's just going to be a subtle fade. You're not really going to see the pink too much because you've already got yellow down and orange down. So it's just going to give it that much more of a fade here. Man, that's looking really cool. I'm really enjoying this. It's a lot of fun. Make sure you're wearing your respirator as you paint. And make sure that if you're not painting where it's going directly outdoors with some type of a filtration system, make sure that you have the air around you open so you don't breathe this stuff in because it's not good for your lungs. That's looking really nice. Very, very subtle hint there of the color fade, which is what pulls off a really good faded paint job, folks. I'm really enjoying this paint. I hope you are too. The thing is folks, you can do this. You can paint like this too. If you take your time and watch the videos that are put out, we'll show you how to do these things. Also, if you got questions, just please ask in the comments. I'm more than happy to answer your questions as best as I can. And if I don't know the answer, I'll research it and find an answer and get back to you. Now look how that turned out. What a nice, subtle fade. We're going to let this sit and dry for a while and harden up a bit, but I've got more in store for you here, folks. This is going to be a lot of fun, I promise. Let's move on. So here's how the fade looked when I finished up. We're going to let it set for a little while and harden up because I've got some stencil work that I want to do on this thing, and I don't want the paint to pull off, so we definitely need it to harden up. So we're going to let it sit for a little bit, and then we'll get back to you. I took some vinyl I got from my wife's sign shop, and I drew it out and I hand cut me some stencils here. The vinyl that I'm using here is just regular sign vinyl, and I got it out of my wife's scrap bin. Now you can go to a local sign shop and ask them to get some stuff through their scrap bin also. I drew it out and I hand cut it like running paint. And I'm going to paint the back end of the van white again so I get a nice clean surface in order to do the paint work that I want to do. So that's why I wanted to do the fade on this, and I think it's going to look really cool when we're done. But stand by, it's going to get even better. Okay, we've got the van ready to go. Now we're going to use the Auto Air White Primer to go ahead and fill this in. Now it covers pretty quick here, and it dries really quick, which is cool. So we're going to go ahead and cover up all that additional color that we don't want and make it nice and white again so we can get on to spraying the next part of the paint job. The stuff works excellent. It makes a great base coat also in order for you to use your Createx paints. There, that looks good. Got all the other color covered up. Just make sure your stencil hasn't pulled up in the meantime so it doesn't bleed underneath. Now we're spraying it and we're making a splatter pattern. We're using the end of a plastic piece that I cut and pointing the airbrush directly at it. Here I'm just fogging in some of the ends or the undersides of the paint drips. Try and give it a little bit of a shadow. If I can get this thing where I want it. There we go. Now we'll put some more shadow on there. Now here's actually we're splattering. Here I just cut, like I said, it's kind of like a popsicle stick, but I just used plastic, and we're throwing some splatter on there. Point the airbrush directly at it in an angle. It's going a little bit high, it's going over the top. But notice how you're getting the splatter pattern on there. And yes, I did take the needle cover off the end in order to get what I wanted. Now I'm spraying around the edge of the drips to give it a little bit of shadow. That's looking pretty crazy. Alright. Here we've removed the stencil. That looks pretty sweet. I'm really happy with that. That looks nice. That looks real nice. Let's move on. Now here I've used a fine tip permanent marker and I put some cracks in the splatter paint to make it look like granite or concrete or whatever. But I'm also going to go back around the paint drips to make it look a lot cleaner with the fine tip marker. Now the fine tip marker, if the paint isn't dry, it will not work very well, so you got to be careful of that. I went on Amazon and I ordered some extra fine tip black paint markers and some white fine tip paint markers, and those will definitely help in the future. But I think it looks fantastic. We're doing well here. And this is what we started with. This Greenlight van GMC. It's a really nice van, but it definitely needs some work to bring it to the standards of the Four Horsemen. It's this one was a lot of fun, folks. I really enjoyed this build. And this is what we got to. Man, what a lot of fun this was. I really enjoyed this build. Here we've taken that GMC Turtle Wax van and we turned it into this 4x4 beauty. The suspension and the wheels worked out perfect underneath this body. The paint, oh the paint, man was that fun. Fading from a hot pink to an orange to a yellow and making it look like drips are running back to the back of the car, and then covering the back of the van with the cracked granite. That looked looks outstanding. I'm really happy with the way it turned out. We put some really nice clear coats on it and put it all together. This one was over the top as far as having to mock things and put it together and everything. This was a definite challenge. Suspension on this bad boy works. That was a lot of fun, and hope I don't have to do one again for a while. But I really enjoyed the challenge on this one here. It tested my mettle per se. Fantastic. Thank you, Javier, for this challenge. I'd like to thank Chris Smith, Jim Silva, and check out his YouTube channel too. Stacy Wright, Daryl Begtel, and Michio Woods Garage. If you're looking for Hot Wheels to collect or to build or whatever like that, check out Richard's page at Michio's Garage. Go to Facebook and check that out. My buddy Aaron Murphy out there in sunny California, thank you, brother, for your support. William Robinson, Mr. K7, out there driving truck in the Midwest, keeping America's supplies going on. And Mr. Jake Rademacher. My friend, thank you so much for your generosity and your donations. Thank you so much. If y'all get a chance, please check out my Patreon page. There will be a link in the description there. Become a member of the Diecast Graveyard team, and you'll get a chance to see these videos before they go public. Plus, we'll also do monthly drawings, and you'll also get pictures of works in progress, and you'll also have the ability to ask me questions one-on-one and possibly some live video feeds to help you with your diecast hobby. This is Paul from Diecast Graveyard, representing the Four Horsemen. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you here again next month. Take care.